Hello! Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Scenes at Michael Chang and Dick Lee's Beauty World 2015, Episode 2. My name is Jeffrey, your host for this chat. Today I've got Yang Derong, the costume designer,
Hello.
Ashley Lim, the hair designer,
Hello.
and Bobbie Ng, the makeup designer.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Hi! So let's get into finding out a bit more about yourselves before we talk about Beauty World. Derong, how did you get involved in designing costumes for the theatre?
Well, I got involved in designing costumes almost by accident. I was actually helping out, kind of like, a production. It was Christina Sargent's, back then I think it was called the Stars Theatre, and it was a production for 12th Night. And so you can imagine Shakespeare, right? It's your first thing that you do. That's a lot to learn. And so, from then on, it kind of like snowballed into what it is today. And I think, it was a great starting point.
And have you always been designing was your thing? What inspired you to look into designing?
Well, I came from fashion, and so, that's what I do. At one point in my life, that was my day job. And so it was quite an interesting transition from fashion into costume because fashion, a sense of practicality needs to be there. But in costumes, not that there isn't a sense of practicality. You still have to do quick change in 3 seconds. But then you can add all the fantasy to it and to help build the character, And so I think in theater, you dress to be the character, whereas in normal fashion, you actually dress as the character. The clothes dresses you rather than you dress the clothes. Does that all make sense?
Yes. It's a very philosophical opening. Very good. Thank you. So let's get into Ashley. Ashley,
Hello.
how did you get involved designing hair for the theatre?
Okay, I was working in a salon with it's called Botticelli with William Teo. Back then in the 80s, William Teo is one of the best director in theatre. So I was involved in most of his production actually. Yeah, that's how I get involved.
Okay. And Bobbie, let's talk to Bobbie now. How did you get involved?
My makeup journey began with MAC Cosmetics, and I was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to do theatre with the brand. And when I did my very first theatre show in 2000, that's also how I met Ashley. And even after I left MAC Cosmetics, I think I've continued to do theatre with a lot of help from Ashley as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time friendship. And
Yes. We are very, very good friends for the last 20 years.
It's great to hear. Let's get back to Derong. So as a costume designer, what is your creative process, when you are invited to design for a show? So, what are the steps that you take in preparing to design for the show?
The steps that I take, first and foremost, when I'm being approached, I get very, very excited, so excited, buzzing with energy. And then it's a lot of numerous important sessions to talk, talking with the director, talking with, the script writer, talking to the whole team actually to find out what is the look and feel that they're after. Because in theater, the same piece, it can be treated in so many different ways. And that depends on the director's vision. And together with, the whole creative team, like maybe somebody may have certain ideas about the lights, or somebody might have certain ideas about certain period hairdo or certain period makeup, costumes. And so I think all those sessions are important. And so I think those sessions not only give us the look and feel, I tend to be a little bit kiasu, I tend to dig very deep into the character, like to understand what are the little quirks about the character, you know what I mean? Like, does she wear a earring, you know what I mean? Or does she not wear earring, you know what I mean? Or does she have certain bad habits, you know, based on her character? And does she have certain good habits that we can also add to it? So I think getting deep into the character is important, so that we can find little things to help build the character, to help you understand and see the characters much better, instead of just a typical costume, hair, and makeup makeover. You know, so a makeover sometimes is not quite sufficient in theater. You need to get a bit deeper so that you explore the character. And so from the character, it's where we have this wonderful journey of Mari Memasak, where we all start cooking.
I'm really impressed with your passion and your thoroughness in thinking very deeply about the characters, because Beauty World the musical has so many characters, right? And earlier when you talked about how the director has a certain vision, this particular version is quite different from the other versions. Yeah, there's a certain film-like quality. So I believe you did some research into the mood board and all that kind of stuff. Can you share a little bit about, that this version, was there a particular direction in which the director wanted to take it?
Yes, because when I spoke to Michael and Dick, and then the direction was like 60s. So I said, okay, 60s, as in 60s in Beauty World. So as you're probably aware that Beauty World burned down, so there wasn't much references on Beauty World that we can actually get our hands on. And so I was digging a little bit deeper. And so I was thinking, oh my God, what about Gelan, in Man Po Nü Lang, where she is a cabaret singer, you know what I mean? It's like, I think those are important references that, maybe can help, in shaping the look and feel of this production. And also, there were a lot of, I remember, like, there were a lot of 50s and 60s movies like, Bu Liao Qing and Lan Yu Hei. And I remember going to the Oriental cinema with my mother, Oriental cinema in Chinatown, to watch some of those movies. And so I actually have a collection of all those DVDs still, so so that's where I really binge on 60s movies. And at one point when I was living in Hong Kong, I actually collected a lot of VCDs. These days we don't even have VCDs, right? So I actually watched a lot of VCDs on all those old Chinese films with Chan Po Chi, with Lam Hong, with Sam Dim Ha. So all these characters basically help to shape the certain characters we have in Beauty World as well, like Sam Dim Ha especially, which is quite close to Frankie, because not Frankie, sorry, what's her name? Rosemary. She's acted by Francis, so I got it confused. Francis, like Ashley. So it's Francis playing Rosemary. My reference for her was Sam Dim Ha, and also my reference for let's say Ivy was Chan Po Chi, so it was important to get all those documents as well, or not only just binging on the movies, but on those old fashion periodicals or magazines that they used to have, the press cuttings. And so, yeah, it's a lot of like digging and referencing, and so that there's not only authenticity, but with a spin.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, I like us to focus on one of the key characters in Beauty World, Lulu, the queen bee. Yeah, the big, very important woman in the piece. Can you share a little bit about how did you go about designing for this queen bee? How do you make her stand out from all the other cabaret girls?
Well, the queen bee, it's kind of like, don't mess with me, right? So she has that don't mess with me thing about ownership and power. In the in the cabaret world, it's like in the animal world as well, So the queen bee rules, right? So the rest are all worker bees, right? And so how to highlight the queen bee? Of course, we have certain colors that are only kept for her, like red. Also we have certain looks that are kept for her, like nobody else touches it. Or we have certain, I think, special details that you don't find in the other cabaret girls, because she is queen bee, a little bit more atas than the rest, and a little bit more noticeable. Like if you see in her costumes, we actually use a lot of like more refined materials like satins, like brocades, like lace, like a bit more expensive and atas material, rather than the other cabaret girls a bit like all cheap polyester. No, I'm just kidding.
So I see you've got like 5 different designs for Lulu in the show. She has 5 costume changes.
That's right. She's got 5 costume changes, and which is really challenging, because how to maintain that consistent look throughout, and yet have that immediate recognition that the audience can get when she appears. They know, oh, it's still Lulu, it's still Lulu, it's still Lulu. Do you know what I mean? Rather than her character completely changing. And of course, the 5 changes means a lot of crazy backstage super Wonder Woman changes that the hair and makeup have to do.
Yes, on that note, let's get quickly to Ashley. Ashley, what was it like designing for Lulu?
It was actually very simple, because for her, in the sense that she's already so beautiful. Anything that's on her, she just stands out, even though she's very petite and small. Key design for her hair is updo. That is her key design, whereby a lot of gold and ruby jewelries are decked on her, so that she stands out. And also because Derong already said that most of her color are red, so ruby actually give her a bit more high class in a sense. Yeah. And there's another look for her whereby she was in her nightgown. That one is her let down hair look. So that one is another look. So all in all, she got 2 looks. So it's already style to the shape that I want. So it's just put on and take out. So actually for wigs wise, it need to be light. It need to be easy to put on and take out.
Yeah.
And it's also easy to transform in a sense. Yeah.
Then what about makeup? It's surely not as simple, because, Bobbie, can you talk a little bit about makeup for Lulu? Because she's the star, right? Whenever she walks in, people will be looking at her. So the face is everything. So you want to talk a little bit about the makeup challenge?
Of course, makeup, there's no challenge on the actress herself, because she's already very pretty. Whatever makeup that you put on her, I think she can carry it very well. But I think what is important for makeup for Lulu is that the consideration of what makes a typical 60s look, because we cannot make her look like she is herself. So we really need to transport her makeup look back to the 60s. So there's a lot of reference from how the Western 60s would do their makeup, or even how the Asian 60s would do their makeup. And then we try to define what is the common 60s theme in terms of makeup. Like, for example, eyeliner, elongated eyeliner, and also choice of colors. In this case, for Jeanette, red is very prominent and found in costumes and hair. So even for lipstick, we have only given her, the top cabaret girl, a red lipstick. So no one else, for makeup-wise, can carry red lips except for her.
So they use brown lips, or
there's so many colors, right? So others will have like pink, orange, and purple, or even deeper shade of red. But hers is really a true blue, vibrant red.
Okay.
Yeah.
From vibrant colors, let's talk about what happens to older characters like Mummy. So maybe you get back to Derong. Can you talk a little bit about Mummy? Because she's an older character. And is it boring designing for older characters?
It's actually very challenging in this case, because, Mama is actually the Lulu of the past because back then she was a top girl as well. She was the queen bee, and it's that she's grown, she's aged, she's grown older, but she still runs the cabaret. She still probably owns it and runs it and, still has control over the cabaret. Like even Lulu has to listen to her, right? So how do you do that? Because as a mama son, you want your girls to shine, right? Not you, because you live on your girls, based on your girls, not because of yourself, You have to make sure that your girls are beautiful, they are stunning, but yet you don't want to look like an old lady kind of trailing them around, in the cabaret. So she has still got to look respectable. And so that's why we devised, again, a whole different color palette for her. She's always in gray, silver, black and white, but it doesn't mean boring, gray, black and white. No, we're actually using a lot of very expensive brocades and special materials on her that picks up the light on stage. And so, she actually looks like a even more atas queen bee because she's in control. And of course, when you get to an older sort of age, you tend to have a bit more money and, of course, more jewelry, right? So she's not afraid to flaunt it. So in the case of Mama, she actually wears a lot of her jewelry, which she has probably acquired over, the last 2 decades of her, being the queen bee or being the most popular girl of the cabaret, making enough money to buy these things. Because back then, I don't think they have a lot of big bank accounts, you know what I mean? So what they have is probably in jewelry and in gold.
So then how did you get that? Because, it's a period piece. So did you have to specially tailor make these jewelry?
These are just collections that I wear them. I have some of these pieces, and the rest are kind of like bought over a period of time, or in some Salvation Army shops, or secondhand shops that has that 50s look. But they are not precious ones, okay, like the ones we use on stage. They are not actual pearls and diamonds. But as you're probably aware, in the 50s, the rigor or the look of the day were pearls. So women had pearls, but in different settings, different configurations. It would also be different than, let's say, in this case, Lulu's jewelries, which are mainly in rubies. Yeah. So Mama's jewelry is mainly in pearls and diamonds, and we even go as far as right down to the height of the shoes she wears, because she can't be taller than the rest of the girls, right? So because her girls have to shine, so we kept her in slightly lower shoes, but lower shoes doesn't mean less power. If you imagine Janice Cole in her power role in this, my God, this girl rocks it, So when she got into costume, she really bring life to the character. And she was like, I mean, Lulu was Queen Bee, but, Mama was Empress Dowager, really, in the cabaret. She really rocks it, and she brings life to the role and to the character. And with whatever that we put on her, it just came out amplified like 100 times.
So on that note, what about hair and makeup for Mummy? What was it like? Did you also grow up a hair?
For mommy, she's older, so more fringes, and also her waist is actually slightly bigger than the rest, actually. Anyway, on stage, everything has to be bigger than life,
So you gave her a helmet.
Okay, helmet, and we take out a lot of jewelry, yeah. And one piece is the jade in the center of her hair.
Wow.
That is the centerpiece actually for her.
So with the jade and the helmet, what about the makeup?
So considering that she is older, we've also designed her makeup to be a bit more subdued. So the choice of colors tend to be a bit more brown, darker in shade. So even like for the lips, she's probably used to wearing red lips when she's very popular, and then now she doesn't want to change that red, but we will probably tone it down and then give her a very deep maroon. So that adds also a bit of authority in that look as well when everything comes out so strong.
Yeah. The maturing with grace, with poise,
Yes. Yeah. But with strength.
with strength. So on that note of strength, I think we need to meet Ivy, the girl who took this long trip from Batu Pahat to come to Singapore. Yeah, she's the main character, set in Beauty World. Yeah, looking for her father. Is that right? So, Derong, how did you design for a plain-looking girl from Batu Pahat?
You know, it's really interesting, to be working on Ivy simply because she actually goes through a transformation, like what you say. This girl from Batu Pahat into the going to take over as the Queen Bee role, and in between, she is a cat lady who comes out at night. That's really quite interesting simply because the transformation is from something quite innocent into something quite sort of like power grabbing. And yet, we are trying to keep the gentleness and the beauty of her character. She's actually quite a sweet girl, you know? So that's what we worked on. And of course, when you come from Batu Pahat and how, because it's kind of like what is typically a bit more subtle during the day, right down to her suitcase, her travel wear. Let's say when she takes the train, what is that whole look and feel? Because also, from the economic circumstances that she comes from, she probably doesn't have a lot of money, because that's why she's coming down to Singapore to maybe look for a job or to help to find something, And so with that in mind, we can't put her in something really extravagant or super trendy or super sort of like, look of the moment, but something conservative but at the same time, not so kampong lah. Right? And so we have to be careful of her cleavage as well. Like her dress is all buttoned up, you know what I mean? Unlike in the 60s when you can see a lot more cleavage in women's wear, whereas for her it's still a little buttoned up. And of course, we gave her her own special color as well. That it's an orange dress, and that look and feel. It's still that little girl from Batu Pahat, which is actually inspired by Tamboji. In a Hong Kong movie, which is called Hak Si Mao. I actually saw the DVD, how she also transformed into a cat suit at night, you know what I mean? For one of the scenes.
Yeah.
So that's before she actually becomes the next Lulu or the new Lulu, how she overtook Lulu. And so with costumes to transform the characters that way is actually quite a challenge.
Yeah. So on that note of challenge, I'm sure with hair and makeup as well, because from Batu Pahat girl to Catwoman to Cabaret girl, how Ashley and Bobbie, how did you all make that transformation within short time?
Yes, we actually have time. For my side is because she came from a very low playing girl, so I gave her a bob actually, which is back in the 60s, bob with the full fringe. They want to make her look younger, and then at the same time, she has to come in to perform a song. That's where I changed her wig again into a more updo, more still with a fringe on, and more perform to make her look like she is the next Lulu.
Yeah. So has she got more wigs than Lulu?
She all in all also got about 2 weeks only. Yes, 2 weeks.
Only 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, so what about makeup? How did you change transform Ivy?
Yeah. Okay. For Ivy, I think when you first see her, you want to see her as a young and innocent girl. So you really, when you think about the character, a young and innocent girl probably doesn't do much. Like she doesn't know how to put on makeup at all. So you really want to see her transformation on stage from being young and innocent to maturing and into a cabaret girl. So you will slowly see her transformation from almost like bare skin, nothing, and then slowly putting on more and more makeup as she gradually progressed to mature into a cabaret performer. Yeah.
So on that note of progression, I
Yes.
think one of the fun songs I remember is High Class.
Yes.
Yeah. And in High Class, we meet
Hi.
best friend, yeah, Rosemary. Yeah, so
Yes.
maybe we have to talk about the makeup for Rosemary first. So we'll go backwards, yeah. So we'll start with Bobbie, Ashley, and then we get back to Derong. Yeah, just for a change of pace. Yep.
So Rosemary, she's a more bubbly and fun character, and you want to contrast her with Ivy. So she definitely has more makeup. So even in her color on her skin, you will see more vibrant colors like orange and pink, depending on the outfit that she wears for the day. So then you will see the two contrasts. Like when Ivy is next to her, you will see Ivy as being a very plain looking girl versus Rosemary, whereby her everything is more vibrant.
Yeah, but not as vibrant as the cabaret girls, lah.
Oh, very different. In terms of makeup, I think she still looks sweet and pretty for Rosemary. But whereas when you are a cabaret girl, the makeup has a more sensual mood. Yeah, so it's a very different mood altogether. Although they are still colorful, but whatever is being portrayed is very different.
Okay, okay. And what about hair?
For hair,
Yeah.
she is in fashion actually, in a sense, because she's a fashion designer. She's a tailor, you should call, right? So
Yes.
what I did was I gave her a more fashionable style, which is still in the 60s, which is the Omega hairstyle with the flip up back hair and then with a fringe. And then you notice her, she always like to wear a hairband to matches her clothes. So the hairband comes in very handy together with the whole costume look, actually. And she only got one look throughout the show.
Okay, but different colors, lah, right?
Different colors of hairbands, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So on that note of costumes, Derong, how did you design for the designer?
Yes, the different colors that Ashley was talking about, we actually kept Rosemary only in polka dots. So she was always in polka dot, from black and white polka dot to color polka dots to big and small polka dots to basically color background polka dots, white background polka dots. She's just super polka dotted all the way. So it's also a way to identify her as a character, because polka dots are like bubbles, like champagne bubbles. So she's always very happy. So it's like bubbles, and she, being a dressmaker herself, is actually in touch with the trends, unlike Ivy, who is not in touch with the trends, So, but they are very good friends, you see. So, how to also create a distinctive difference when the two of them meet, where you can see one is a lot more fashionable, and the other one is really just a girl from the kampong, from Batu Pahat. And so how to create that distinct difference. And so that was what I was trying to do as well visually on stage, to make sure you see the total difference. And of course, Rosemary, being who she is, it's really larger than life, So it's not just the bubbles. It's like how the bubbles transform from black and white bubbles into color bubbles. And for one of the dresses, we actually had to patch the dots on itself because we can't find the gradual dots. And so that was really quite a challenge, but it was a good challenge because visually it was stunning on stage. So, dressmakers, I take my hat off for you because you made it possible.
Wow. So we've been talking so much about all the ladies. Surely there must be some men in beauty world. And what was it like designing? Let's talk about Frankie. Yeah, Frankie, because he has a duet with Rosemary. Yeah, Frankie. And I remember the suit and all that. Would you want to talk a little bit about Frankie?
Well, yeah, Frankie is an interesting character because he's a school teacher, right? So he's kind of that 60s geeky, super conservative. But then we don't really want to see him as just being conservative because at some point he also wants to show that he can go to the nightclub. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a dark side in him as well that we don't know about. So, I mean, if you think about the super geek teacher look with the glasses, and then if you think like in the 60s as well, I think, there was this, the fully knitted polos that they used to wear with a brand called Montagut or something. So, it's that look, and then there's a lot of browns, a lot of beige in him. So we tend to use a lot of those colors for him to also play down even more on his character to show that he's even more conservative. But at one point, we made him a little bit of like a little hero, like a little Sean Connery, the man with a gun, with checks and all, so that he all of a sudden becomes a different persona, a stronger, a more with the world, dare to go to a cabaret sort of person, rather than a school teacher who is always very nice and conservative. So that was really interesting. But what was interesting about Frankie was actually to find him the right pair of glasses because, being a geek, the most important thing for you is your glasses, right? So we had to find the right 50s, 60s sort of frames for him. And so that was quite a challenge, actually, and the right shoes, of course.
In the end, where did you all find those pair of glasses?
I found them in Bangkok.
So Bobbie, you're laughing so much. How was it like doing makeup for Frankie? The makeup design for Frankie.
Yeah, actually for the guys for stage, it's actually very straightforward. So when we do makeup for guys, we just don't want them to look too made up. I think that is one very important aspect. So, and in terms of their characters, we just want to differentiate maybe like even Frankie and Ahok. So Frankie being more geeky, we also made him look more groomed. Like in terms of eyebrows, it's neater. So like everything is to a T. So that differentiates him from, if you are an Abeng, then you're probably not so groomed. You don't care too much about your eyebrows. Maybe even if there's a bit of scar here and there, you don't really mind. But for Frankie, you really want to make him look as pristine as possible. Yeah, so that for guys is, I mean, you just differentiate them by their character and how much and how little to put on. Yeah, it's not so much about making them look like they have makeup on. Yeah.
Okay. And then so for Ashley, is that the same principle to make them as normal looking?
Yes, more the same. But for guys, it's easier because guys, for Frankie, because he's a school teacher, so-called. Yeah. So I actually make him look a little bit more smart, blue cream down, back in the 60s. Usually they use blue cream to make it very, very slick and very shiny. Whereas for Ahok, because he's kind of a gangster-like character, so actually his hair is a little bit more styled in a sense. He likes to style his hair very nicely, very, very big.
Abeng lah.
Abeng, yes.
No, but that's true though. It's strange, the Abengs may not wear much for their clothes, but then the hair is so important for them.
Very important.
Yeah, the hair. And remember the Abeng used to carry the pointy comb as well. They used to back comb their hair a little bit, so I think that was a very important thing. And like in this case of Ahok, we kept him in very simple black and white tones throughout the show so that he will actually stand out a lot more because everybody else is in color. So if you see in Ahok's costumes, it's just only in black and white so that he actually pops. And he's totally pared down. He's like a something, you know what I mean? Like Ah Beng, who's just wearing a singlet and a white shirt, and at some point who's just really all pared down. But then his character is actually larger than life, and so with Ashley's hairdo, I guess it makes him even bigger and stronger.
And I noticed Bobbie did give him a fake tattoo on the arm, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he did a different tattoo on the arm.
Yeah, that's
Every
right.
day a different tattoo.
Yeah. Fake one.
Fake one, yes.
Yeah.
So talking about tattoo, talking about bigger than life, I think we mustn't forget about our three witches, Rosie, Lily, and Daisy. So maybe we start with the hair first, Ashley. You want to talk a little bit about the hair?
For the three witches, they have three different looks. The first look was actually her updo hair with this like a beehive kind of look. That is for the cabaret scene. And then the second look was actually like a high ponytail hair down look, which is for the songs that they are singing. And there's one scene whereby they came out as a nightgown, so they have all colors on the hair.
Great.
Yes.
The three. And what about makeup, Bobbie? How did you make these three girls different?
These three girls are very colorful in terms of their makeup. So each of them has their distinct color. Like one of them has solely just green, and then the other one is purple and pink. So that they look the same. So the style of makeup is still very much the same, but yet they are different in their color palette. Yeah, but their colors definitely are stronger than most other characters that you see in this entire show, because of also what they are wearing. Yeah.
So on the note of what they're wearing, Derong, you want to talk a little bit about these three witches? What was your inspiration for these three girls?
Well, my inspiration for these three girls are a bit sort of like airy fairy, kind of like they they don't have it quite together, and they will just wear whatever that's the latest, whatever that's the trendiest, whether if it looks good on them, it looks bad on them, but they also trying to prove a point. You know what I mean? When you are coming into a so-called establishment of a cabaret, you got to make your way, you got to climb up the ladder, and so they are actually making every effort in terms of the clothes they wear, in terms of the makeup, in terms of the hair, in the comportment, how they move, how they talk to the customers. They are actually trying to improve and maybe be one of the top girls. So they are trying to prove something, and so while trying to prove something, you tend to make a lot of mistakes as well. And so we wanted to make the mistakes a bit sort of like bigger, like a little bit sort of like not tacky, but in a way like a Jodie Lay. It's kind of like a little deliberate bad taste, to them, so that you kind of sympathize with them too, not to discard them or discount them completely, but you actually sympathize with them. You warm up to them for their badness, not for their badness, for their bad taste. You know what I mean? Like their costumes are really. Again, they're kept in color stories like purple, pink, and green. And they come out like, I think, in 3 different changes. But then they're mainly driven by the colors. One is with the print that is fully printed. The other one is in a nightgown, negligee sort of a look. And I think all of that, I love that look in particular, because that's where, my God, I don't know how Ashley does that, but then it's got all the colors in those colors as well, in the hair with the night negligee. And I absolutely love that, because that was the epitome of like women of the 60s, because, they all wear hair colors to go to bed at night, you know what I mean? And which women don't do anymore. It's kind of like at the turn of the century, women were still wearing crinolines and corsets, So these are all the pressures that we put on women, for them to look good, for them to look acceptable in society. And so like the hair colors is really one of those things as well. And of course, Ashley had to find the matching colors to their clothes. Right, Ashley? I don't know where you
Yes.
found them.
And nettings also.
And
And-
nettings as well,
and
right?
Yeah.
So where did you find them, Ashley?
I got it from Chinatown.
What? Sorry?
Chinatown.
Chinatown. Wow.
You didn't go to Bangkok, right?
No.
Okay. Thank you all three of you for your very insightful sharing of and I'm so bowled over by the thoroughness and the thought behind each costume, each hair, each makeup. I think it's the kind of unsung stories that people don't hear and see. You know, when we watch a show, a lot of audiences just watch a show and wow, they had a great time, but they don't realize.
I think that there's a lot of teamwork ongoing in even in a small production.
Mm,
A lot of teamwork, and then a lot of tears and sweats and running around backstage. Everybody sees, and you know. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Annie Pack and you, of course, Jeffrey Tan, for giving us a platform to voice out our whatever we do. It's a good.
thank you for your generosity.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But before we go, I think I have one last question, which is, you guys have been so experienced designing for the theatre for such a long time. And there might be friends who are thinking about getting involved, or there might be friends who are thinking, how do I go about doing this? So maybe if you can share some words of advice, or if there's no words of advice, what's one inspiring takeaway you would like to leave our friends with? Maybe we'll start with you.
For me, I think that you need to have a lot of passion.
Okay.
Yeah, passion is very important. If you have a passion, then everything goes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I add on to Ashley's passion. Passion is very, very important because you really put your days and nights, your weekends, your public holiday, you totally put in all your time into doing theatre. So without passion, I think you won't want to dedicate so much time of your life. And I think for me, the other very important thing, of course, I've grown a lot ever since being involved in theatre. The other thing very important is that because so many things, it's so hectic backstage, you really have to be very adaptable. Things happen and mistakes happen every show. So sometimes we really have to think on our feet, like, if something happened that didn't happen for the previous show, how do you manage and adapt to it, to the changes?
Yes.
Yeah, because not every show is the same. So there may be mistakes. We just learn from our mistakes and we move on very quickly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also because for us, we don't just design, because we on show itself have to be there. Me and Bobbie has to be there every day, every shows, every scene. Make sure everything is okay, and then make sure we do it right. Because end of the day, the whole production counts on us in the sense that the actors are on stage performing, and then they need to look good on stage. Yeah.
Okay. And let's get back to Derong. What's your word of advice, or
Well, I think Ashley and Bobbie has said it. I think you really need a lot of passion, and you need a lot of determination, because you just have to keep pushing, and you just have to keep, pushing and pushing and pushing until it works for you. Because I think that's one of the most important thing. Is to really be have the power to persevere, and also the determination to persevere. And I think one of the most important thing is, like, every production is different. And so you also need the power to learn, with your ears, your eyes, your heart, not with your mouth. And also at the same time to unlearn everything that you've learned in the past production, because every production is a new production. So theatre is actually wonderful in that sense, because that's where I find myself learning a lot for every production, right down to the smallest detail, because I so kiasu, right? I go and dig out everything and learn about everything. So, and at the same time, I also have to unlearn by the time I go on to the next production, because things don't apply anymore, because it's a different context, or the director has taken a whole new direction in this other piece that we're working on. So it's actually it's wonderful. I love it. It's kind of like constant renewal, and you know, especially in costume design, because it's more than just doing little sketches.
Thank you, all three of you, for your time, generosity, and passion in sharing your practice. And I love the fact that, you know, you've reminded us to stay open. And I think what's not said but implied, and as we've seen, is, you know, once you're open to learn, to experience, I think creativity comes, and of course, having fun and building a sense of community. So thank you all for tuning in. Please join me once again to thank our guests, Yang Derong, Ashley Lim, and Bobbie Ng. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you, and not forgetting all those people backstage, including wardrobe, the crew, the lights. You know, those are the real unsung heroes.
Yes.
Honestly, not us.
Yes. Thank you, Bobbie, Ashley, and Derong. We'd like to acknowledge our supporters, the National Arts Council, SISTIC, Academy of Rock, and the Singapore Street Festival. This program is a part of SG Culture. Appreciation shout out to Brendan Wong for sound and video, Agnes Tay of ATMC for PR services, and Wei Chun for the virtual backdrop. Thank you, and this is your host, Jeffrey Tan, signing off. See you at the next Behind the Scenes at Michael Chang and Dick Lee's Beauty World 2015, Episode 3. Bye!
Bye.
Thank you.